So you're not
This
caught.
is so much better than StreamYard. Right, give me the details later.
I will, absolutely. Well, good morning, good day, good afternoon, good night, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My wonderful guest is clearly it's evening time there, and while he is resplendent there in the surroundings of his beautiful kid's little doll playhouse, and he's got his furry companion there, and with the awesome paws. And it's early morning here for me on a Sunday, but that's great as well because I'm an early riser anyways, so that's all good. But I welcome back to Six Elemental Interviews, and this morning for me and this evening for my esteemed guest, I have the incredible booktuber, one of my favorite booktubers, David from Four Corners of Page. How are you doing today, sir?
I am. I'm happy to be here. Excited to be here. I was messaging you behind the scenes last week because my laptop broke, and I was a bit worried. So my the speakers just cut out last week when I was on vacation, and I took it to the Apple repair shop, and they went, "To be honest, the problem is your laptop's so old. There's nothing we can do." And we recommend you buy a new one. And I decided not to. So this is my first time trying anything from my iPhone, and we'll see how it goes. But I really wanted to make sure that we kept going with this because I have been excited for it, PL, and thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for putting up with the technological, issues that have besieged you, and roughing it on the phone. But yeah, I mean, everything's clear, the volume's great. So, but yeah, seriously, thank you for doing it, and thank you for doing it. I know, trying to get the kids down for bed, being a young parent, all that. I've been there. It's been a while, but
Yeah.
now I'm a grandparent, so I don't have quite the challenges that you do. So I really appreciate you making the time out of your busy life to chat to me. So
I mean, to be honest, I enjoy my kids from the hours of 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and it's 8 p.m. now, so the deadline's passed. So it's good to get them to bed. No, no, they're wonderful. And parenthood is wonderful, but as you say, it does come with its challenges. And I was talking to you before we went live about you were talking about how I film some stuff outdoors sometimes, and that, mate, is just pure survival, pure survival. It's okay. I have 45 minutes. I think I said they're watching bloody VeggieTales, and I'm going to run outside into the garden and see what I can do. And that kind of is what my channel is at this point.
but I think that's part of I'm sorry, for me, that's part of the charm, the ambiance. One of the reasons why I so gravitate towards watching you. We talked a bit backstage about, the authenticity, like you're who you are. But I also feel that, because you're very open about what you do. You're a teacher, you're an educator.
Yeah.
And I do wonder, is there an attempt, I'm not saying you're trying to lecture, is there an attempt to, I know there's certainly an attempt to engage and with the audience when you put up your videos. I know there's an attempt to analyze and to think and to cogitate and to and to you suck your audience in, especially the way you present things. I'll get into that later. But is there an actual attempt to educate in a way? Do you feel that you have something to offer there? Is that why you got into BookTube? Is that one of the reasons why you make your videos the way you do?
No. um, I think the reason I didn't make my channel for the longest time is that I mean, we all have it to some extent, right? The feelings of inadequacy. And when you see so many YouTube channels crop up, so many of whom I would argue are tons better than mine, you do think kind of, what can I add to this whole shebang? I've got the Teddy, that's pretty much it. And you kind of have to just, and I'm sure it's the same when you're writing, or when you're making a channel or doing anything that's vaguely creative, you kind of have to make your peace with the fact that all you can be is who you are. And I just really wanted to talk about books. When I made my channel about 18 months ago, I was living in Kuwait, and Kuwait's a fascinating country in a number of ways, but I didn't have anyone around me who read books. Certainly not in the way that I do, and I was starved for it. I'd go to school and I'd do my teaching, and I'd come home and I'd be with my family, and both of those things were wonderful. But I just wanted an outlet to talk about books, and I just one day, it was my birthday about a year and a half ago. I stuck on the camera and went, "It's time to do this. I want to get my thoughts out onto the internet, and if that crashes and burns, so be it." So I guess for me, it wasn't so much about educating. I mean, I don't think I, quite frankly speaking, have the intelligence to educate people properly. Um, I just wanted to jabber, like I'm doing right now. I like to jabber. I like to witter, and this has given me the opportunity to do that. And I'm genuinely so grateful that some people think that my wittering is worth listening to.
Well, I'd say it's more than worth listening to. How does that contrast, especially being um, a parent of young children? And I'm not sure all the levels that you teach. I'm guessing it's more primary and elementary in that milieu.
It's 11 through 18.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what is it like to spend so much of your life with younger minds, and then you're doing booktube to a more adult audience, especially some of the books you read, like me, quite dark and quite adult.
Yeah.
So what's it like, when okay, a lot of your day is, running around, wiping noses, and then, getting kids off to certain appointments, and, you know, comforting them when they've fallen down, or making sure they eat, and then you go and you're an educator, and then you're trying to enlighten and stimulate minds, and you're trying to obviously get a curriculum out and do all these things, and then you come to this creative side, this booktube side. What's that transition like, do you find that sometimes you have to switch a part of your brain on or off when you sit down to make a video?
I just do it for the paycheck, to be honest. Do I don't really think of it like that. I mean, we're talking before we went live about personality, and booktube, and teaching, and I think what I said to you is, when I present about books in any capacity, and whether that's just me chatting in a coffee shop, or doing something that I'm filming, or doing something in the classroom, I always try and be as close to my, I guess, authentic self as I can be. I try not, when I'm talking to the camera, in any way put on a facade. I mean, ultimately, we're all of us, all we are masks, right? And maybe that sounds a bit too dark and bleak, but what I'm trying to say is, when I talk to certain people, I will talk in different ways. I'll talk to my wife in a different way that I talk to my kids, than I talk to the kids in my classroom, than I'm talking to you right now. So we're not really a personality, I guess. We're kind of personalities. But what I'm trying to say is that when I talk about books, I try to do it from the heart. And maybe I have some deeper point, and maybe I'm teaching to the exam, or I'm just trying to get people excited. But honestly, I don't think there's that much dissimilarity, because I'm in a very fortunate position that when I talk about books, I like talking about books, and so it seems to flow quite easily for me. What I will say, though, to this point is, I do find myself, I guess, needing a little bit of space after, like doing so much talking and communication. And to be honest, most of teaching should be listening, right? It shouldn't be talking, it should be listening, and studying, and see how the kids are getting on. I do find myself sometimes, especially after filming a video too, after that, needing like half an hour to decompress, to chill, to stare at a grey wall. And I'm lucky in this apartment, I've got many behind me. Although my wife swears this is blue. I want, you can weigh into that discussion too. But I do find that I need a bit of space after I do anything kind of teacherly, or talking-ish. I do need some space after to unwind.
And
Do you agree with that?
I
Like,
totally
when
agree.
you're social after that, you need a space to, because hang on, wait, I notice as well with you and your six elementals, you often do them back to back, right? You'll do like four in a day. Well, I don't know how you do that, man. Because for me, after like an hour and a half conversation, 2 hours conversation, I'm frazzled. And when I was looking, at your channel, he does so many back to back. Are you not shattered by the end?
I think I'm a man of extremes. I think that's why. So then
Yeah.
I compress all these amazing discussions in one day, and then the day after I'm just totally,
Sleep.
zonked. I just sit
Yeah.
and I vegetate for 3 hours, right?
Mm.
So I think I am a man of extremes. I mean, you can tell I'm writing a book every year, and it's a book series, and
Yeah.
well, I work full time. Some people would say you're nuts, but at the same time, I find that the stimulation from the talking to someone like you, all these conversations, it's a high, right?
Mm.
And it's a
Yes.
different kind of high I get from spending time with my lovely wife, and my partner, my best friend, the person that you're going through life with. It's a different kind of high I get from speaking to my kids, who are now adults. So our conversations are very much adult to adult, rather than, it's not so much a parent thing. It's more an adult to adult thing, and a different conversation from my work colleagues and my friends. It's just and I feel sometimes, do I compartmentalize everything? I don't know how you feel. Do I compartmentalize my life? Do you compartmentalize your life as a teacher versus a parent versus no, they all blend and they overlap, but in some ways sometimes it feels that way. So that's why I feel like I can just devote an entire day just to live streams, and it's like that's my live stream day, and my brain is going in another direction to work. It might be writing,
Yeah.
it might be chores or something else, right? So yeah, I think that's how I do it. So
Mm.
I'm not sure.
I'm also sorry. Please
Oh, please go ahead.
don't let me talk over you on your channel.
No, no, please go ahead.
I was just going to say I'd be curious to hear your input about what I said previously about creativity and just having to overcome feelings of maybe potential inadequacy and just going for it.
Everything I do is potential feelings of inadequacy
Cheers.
as a father, as a husband, as a grandfather, as a law enforcement officer, as a writer, as a booktuber. Everything is about, you know, am I good enough? Am I sure? And I don't do that as much. I don't do that in the moment at all. In the moment, I
Mm.
just do like everyone else. You just do.
Yes.
When your kids, fell out of a tree and they're crying and they're hurting and need the gospel, you just do. You don't think about, right. It's the action. But then afterwards, I think a lot of sit down and analyze, did I do the right thing? Could I have done this
Yeah.
better? Did I, so I think I'm very much the same that way. But I think in terms of the inadequacy itself, I think because I'm old and older, um, I spend a lot less time doing that the older I grow. And I simply realize that what I've done is too late. It's too late to change it, for one thing. I can always strive to do better. And then the on the other hand, you know what, you get a sense of, it's not complacency, but you realize that sometimes what you're doing, and I feel I'm someone who's all striving for continuous improvement, but I think I give myself a lot more grace now that sometimes what you're doing is good enough, right? I'm
Yes.
much more cognizant of that than before. Like, hey, like this is good enough. Your book isn't going to be perfect. What you did at work today is going to be perfect, but sometimes it's good enough, right? Like, you may have wanted to. Oh, I wish I let my wife know better yesterday how amazing she was when she did that, how much I appreciate her, whatever, and I can tell her
Yeah.
in the moment, like now, to make up for that. But sometimes you realize, oh, but she knows, and it's good enough, right? So,
Yeah.
not that you're not
Um,
trying to be better, not that you're not trying to do more, but yeah.
I was just going to say to that as well. If you don't take that leap, then you never get that rewarding feeling of growth either, right? And that comes in so many areas. I mean, I'm trying to think outside of maybe creativity now, but language. My Japanese is terrible, but it's better than it was when I started. And I needed to do those first really rubbish steps where I say, excuse me, where is the shop? To get to be able to now go into a bank and sort of sort out some logistics and things like that. And I think, but it is true of creation as well. I've kept my first video from my YouTube channel on my channel, even though in my opinion it's abysmal, um, because I kind of feel like I need it there to show myself that there has been improvement. And with your fine work as well. I think I've said to you previously that each book in the Drowned Kingdom that I read, I prefer over the previous one. And I know that you've said yourself that you think book 6 is your favorite so far. So it goes to the speaking of that gradual improvement over time, whether that is from, in my case with my YouTube channel, complete abysmality, whatever the word is, um, or from a book series that starts solid and gets even more better as you go. You have to allow yourself the grace to improve. That's so important.
But I think part of I'm just going to say honestly, part of the charm of your channel, like we talked about authenticity,
Mm,
is if like me, like I'm very bare bones with what I do with YouTube. There's no editing, there's no fancy graphics or nothing, and you have a lot more of that than me, and you're clearly a lot more technically inclined than I am. But part of what I love about your channel is just yep, I'm on the park, and I had to get away from my kids because I can't hear anything, and here's this, oh, there's this bird, and it's part of the charm. It's part of the ambiance, and again, you so much being yourself. You're a very intelligent guy. You're a very intellectual guy, and you provide this thought provoking content, but also in the background there's a great you're willing to be zany and crazy and say, yeah, my life is zany and crazy right now. I had to, the only way I can do this video is to get out for these 5 minutes in this park, and while I'm walking, I'm filming. Like, that's part of what I think makes your channel so fantastic, right? And For me as a watcher, I wouldn't change that for the world. You're the person making the content, but wow, that really draws me in. But I also think one of the things that I admire about you and what I believe, and you're going to correct me on this, and this is the thing I want to ask you about. I know for me, part of the reason that I always say I would not be, if I have any skills as a writer, a lot of that is directly attributable to my life experience, right? Because I'm old
Mm.
and I've had a certain career that's very it shows you a wide swath of life that perhaps people don't experience. I think teachers see the same thing in a way. But the one thing that you have very much over me that you are very well traveled. So you say you live in Kuwait, you're in Japan right now. You're from Scotland. I'm not sure where else you've traveled, but has that influenced how you do your channel? Has that influenced how you approach literature? Has it made you want to read more widely in different, say you might be thinking, okay, well, I'm in Japanese. I want to read more Japanese literature now. I want to like, what is the traveling and the exposure to, the world? What has that done for you in terms of how you approach your booktubing?
That's interesting. Um, I am tremendously, and it's slowed down. I should say, in recent years for various reasons. Not least of which is having a family, but also various geopolitical events. It used to be from Tokyo, getting a flight to Korea, let's say next door, would cost you 20,000 yen, and now it's 90,000 yen. And so actually, I've been mourning, if I can put it that way, the lack of travel compared to how I was maybe 10 years ago. It used to be that I was going to three, four, five new countries a year, which was marvelous, and I don't take that lightly as well. I know how tremendously lucky I was to be able to do that. But I have been reflecting recently, now that travel has slowed down. Um, do I miss it? And the answer is yes. But at the same time, I do feel like I was so fortunate to be able to do it. Not that it's stopped completely, but I was able to do it for so long in my 20s, because especially in my early 20s, I had a lot of growing up to do. I think I was probably quite arrogant and stuck up, and I'm glad that's gone. But I I do think whatever has knocked off me, part of that has been due to the fact that I was able to see different cultures and see different way of doing things, and kind of also just decentralizing my own culture. I think there's a thing, and I actually did my master's in international education, and a lot of it was touching on this, that we all implicitly see our culture as the normal one, right? As a Scottish person from Glasgow, I tend to see the Scottish way of things as being the vanilla ice cream, if you like, the standards, and every deviation from that culture is different and off of that center, rather than seeing it as a whole tapestry of which I am just a small part over here. And I was really grateful to be able to move to Japan when I was 21, and I actually lived in the States for a year when I was 19, and since then I've lived in the Middle East and other places. That I've been able to see that my perspective is just one, and that my perspective is not even necessarily the right one or the wrong one. It's just a different nuance. The extent to which I bring that into my reading, I think it's maybe allowed me slightly to appreciate character a little bit more. Maybe I can put it like that. When a character does something, I try to think of it through this kind of cultural lens, that where are they coming from? What's their context, in a way I wouldn't have been able to do 10 years ago. Maybe that's one answer there. But I will say it's interesting that you said to me, do you find yourself engaging with a lot of international literature? And honestly, PL, the answer is no. And I realized this about 2 months ago, and it's something I really want to rectify. It's silly, quite frankly, that I've lived in Japan for the past, about 8 of the last 10 years, and I've read maybe 20 Japanese novels, which compared to how many books I tend to read, it's very, very marginal. It's very minimal. And actually, just the last couple of weeks, I've actually consciously gone out to buy half a dozen Japanese books, because that's something I want to rectify, and it is something next year on my channel I would love to. I know it's not original to my YouTube channel. I know lots of YouTube channels have done it, but begin to consciously diversify the reading I do, not in terms of SFF, but in terms of the countries of the world. Why is it? Why is it that when I read 100 books a year, 85 of them are by dudes from the UK or the States, or potentially at a pinch Canada or Australia? And as I look through my Goodreads, and I've been making more lists on my YouTube channel for books that dot dot dot, I'm like, you know what? a lot of these books are coming from the same locales. And so I'm so grateful that you asked this question, because it's something I've been trying to course correct on a little bit in the last month or two. And it's something that I'm really trying to carry forward.
Well, that's fabulous, and I commend you for the effort. I want to get back to that quickly, but I must put up in the comments. Okay, hello, morning from Maine, good evening, David. Happy time to PL. Wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for stopping by to say hi, and awesome to see you.
Also, lovely supportive comments as well. I do appreciate them.
Yes,
Mm.
yes, thank you so much. We really appreciate them. So I
Wait,
know.
wait. Can
Oh,
I ask you a question, PL?
absolutely.
Because you said that your writing of Drowned Kingdom and those books are a consequence and an outpouring of who you are and the life experience you've gained. And I would love to hijack this interview a little bit and ask you a little bit more about that, because I'm so curious about the various facets of life experience that you've poured into your books. I don't think I've heard that from you.
Well, and I want to get back to you, but I want this chat to be about you, mostly, David. But I will say this: as specifically a law enforcement officer for the better part of, well, more than the last 2 decades.
Mm.
I'm not sure if when I came on your channel, I think with Vaughn, we spoke as the last time we've been on live together.
Yes.
I have seen society, I feel, in all of its most wonderful, most poignantly touching and positive forms, and also some of the worst. And that life experience is part of what's translated to my books. But beyond that, I think being someone who lives in a very privileged first world, you talked about the lens through which you see, your culture, your society. Yeah, I see Canada as being the greatest country in the world. It's probably not, but and that's not just a byproduct of I feel me being born here and living here. I feel it's my very limited and tiny knowledge of geopolitics and what I see from the world and what I have seen, especially with my career. But that said, in my limited travel, I have also seen that. I mean, for example, I'm not just saying because you're here. The first time I went across the pond for Worldcon to see Scotland, Deb and I fell in love, and I have some background. I have a very background of very mixed parts of the world, but Scotland is one of them. So I have ancestors that are Scottish, and we fell in love with Scotland. But we haven't seen England yet. I haven't seen France. I haven't seen Italy. There's a lot of places I haven't seen, and perhaps I'll feel the same when I get there. But going to Scotland had such a profound impact on me that when I, after leaving there's a kingdom in my series that when I saw parts of Scotland, I was like, that's Scotland, and that I didn't visualize it that way before. But when I came back, and if you keep reading and you get to a certain book, being Scottish, you realize, yeah, that's Scotland. That's what he's described in his. But in any case, I'm rambling here, but my life experience as a law enforcement officer and my life experience as someone who's from what would be considered a visible minority in Canada and other things have all poured into what I've written in terms of this is a series about the complexities of life, the complexities of rulership, the complexities of politics and culture and race and religion and a whole hodgepodge of issues, homophobia, religious intolerance, you name it, that we grapple with in modern society, that I'm putting in more in a fantasy/ancient context, that you can explore it from a lens that, for some people feels a bit safer, but it's very unvarnished. It's very raw. It's very in your face.
Mm.
So yeah, that's how quickly, the long short, those are the things that I've seen and experienced. Um, Prejudice, bigotry, like I said, the things these world confounding issues, which we haven't found a way to solve them, and I certainly have the answers. I'm not nearly smart enough, but that we as a human race can hopefully confront and overcome. But I think part of it is having to first really candidly look at it and see the roots and the root causes, and from the lens of someone who's essentially part of the problem.
Mm. I'll solve the world's problems. I'll do it. I'll take the reins to Mordor. Can I just say very quickly, not to dance around too much what you're saying, I was devastated when I found out Worldcon was in Glasgow and I had no idea. I we it was in Glasgow, right?
Yeah,
So
you
this
didn't.
was this was this was before I made a channel. But I was in the States visiting my wife's family, and then suddenly, literally everyone in the booktube community, which I wasn't a part of yet, I was just seeing them pop up in George Square, and I'm like, this is very unfair. The universe is mocking me, and I actually wonder now that I'm just saying this to you, if this was hindsight, if this was maybe an impetus for me to start my channel, is just seeing so many people together and kind of wanting to be part of that.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing about what I also admire about you, Dave, is you're such a great community member. Like I think you and I've seen, obviously I've been privileged to be part of collaborations with you. I've seen a lot of collaborations you've done, and you're not someone who's just doing it in isolation for clicks, or for likes, or for follower count. You're someone who generally likes the people that you interact with, generally likes engaging with the community, genuinely likes having these in-depth discussions and talking about books and literature. Like that comes across very clearly in the person that you are, right? And I don't think I particularly you watch channels for all kinds of reasons, but what I'm drawn to are people like yourself. But I also do wonder, we talked about going back to the whole cultural thing in literature and all that.
Mm,
I think as I get older, there's that also understanding too of, it's important, I think, to diversify your experiences, reading included. It's really important to understand different cultures, different nationalities, different backgrounds, different that will only enrich you, make you a more well-rounded person, make you a better person, make you grow. You talked a lot about growth, but it's also to you get to a point where you do acknowledge you have preferences and you have tastes and you have things that, even if by virtue of you exploring more things and you find new things that you like, it's just like your palate, your food taste. You may love eating food from all over the world, but your comfort food may be Scottish food, right? It may be haggis, right? But there's nothing wrong with that,
yeah.
right? So I think that's also the balance. And especially as you get older, you give yourself the grace to understand. Yeah, I love exploring new things. I love eating new food. I love traveling new places. But home is the home, right?
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right? So I think that's also something that you recognize as you grow.
Well, I guess a couple of things I'd say to that. First of all, I don't want to blow past your comment about me being a community member and not doing anything for clicks. First of all, for clicks, I just rely on my absolute sex appeal. First of all, but also I know that you've done a conversation with Philip Chase on being part of a community, and I really think you are one of the premier examples of looking out for people in the community and interacting with people in the community and supporting people. So I do not want to brush past your comment, and genuinely thank you very much for that. I think just adding on to what you said though about having preferences with booktube and things like that. I also think just to go beyond that little bit is also to be honest with yourself when something is not for you. There are so many wonderful. Let's stick with SFF. There are so many wonderful fan bases of books that are of high quality that I don't enjoy, and that's fine. You know what? I'm going to throw. I'm not throwing anything under the bus because my whole point is that they're quality, but they're not for me. Wheel of Time. I tried really hard, man. I tried really, and no shame to Robert Jordan or Brandon Sanderson or any of the many Wheel of Time fans. I got 11 books into that series, and it took 11 books for me to go, this isn't for me. One Piece. There are so many wonderful One Piece creators. I've tried. I have a few volumes upstairs still, and it's never hooked me in the way it seems to hook some people. And I think it's important that, especially when you are contributing to conversations, to also recognize, hey, I appreciate this thing has merit, it has legs, it has quality. This isn't maybe a conversation that I necessarily need to join in on. And I should leave it to people who can articulate their love better than me, and I shouldn't feel the need to force it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's funny.
Yeah.
I was on a live with Philip and the awesome Eric Goodwin,
Mm,
from the Imaginarium, and we were talking about just the state of indie fantasy and things like that. And we are talking about books and about popular books, and I feel like I'm start people are going to start thinking that I have something against him, that I'm picking on him, but
who is?
Brandon Sanderson, and I don't. I think he's fabulous as a person from everything I've seen. I don't know him personally, but yeah, like that as great as his books are, and that there are so many elements that are fantastic that it's not necessarily for me. And that's, you realize how popular it is, and you realize how, he's going to go down as probably one of those iconic fantasy authors of all time, of his generation. But
Yes.
it's not my first choice that I turn to as for compelling fantasy. It's and there's a lot of compelling things about it, but it's just a preference thing, right? And it's okay, because
Yes.
there's millions of people that love Brandon Sanderson. He doesn't need my sales to continue his empire, his global
Yes.
empire of world domination of fantasy. So he'll be just fine, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
He's sitting crying somewhere on his sofa right now. The sofa made of money. No, like I actually have a. I want to get back to Brandon Sanderson, and we don't need to make this conversation about Brandon Sanderson, but man, Wind and Truth wiped me out. I haven't read a single Sanderson book since Wind of Truth, and only in the last month have I thought, you know what, there are some Sanderson books that I adore, and it took this one book for me to stop reading this man, and I've been meaning to just go back to a few of his novels that I haven't read, to see what my kind of feelings are now. It's funny how one book can completely throw you off. A trajectory. And so I've been meaning to go back to, for example, Skyward or something like that, and see what my opinion is of Brandon Sanderson a couple of years on. Um, but yeah, I think we're saying the same thing, right? And that's not to say that these communities are wrong. It's to say these communities are right. It's just not a community that we find ourselves gravitating towards,
And it's the same
which
thing. I
is
mean,
wonderful.
my book is very divisive, very. I did write a book that's going to be for mass appeal. I'm have my small dedicated office, which I'm grateful for, and but I'm very cognizant that not every book is for everyone. It's not, they're not meant to be, right?
Yes,
And but part of the beauty of reading and literature is that everyone can find, the same way in booktube you can always find your tribe and your corner of the space. You can find the books that are for you. You can find the people who love the same books. You can find all of that, right? And there's
yes,
nothing wrong with distinct tastes, and like that's the beauty of life, right? That's a
yes,
flavor, right?
yes.
So I want to quickly put up the people in the comments, the awesome Brad Miller. Hey Brad, how's it going, my friend? A great booktuber and aspiring author. I think he's working on his book, probably as we maybe as we speak. He says, good morning, about to set my 68th anniversary. Oh my gosh, huge congratulations to them, sir. That's a rarity in the modern world. 68 anniversary. Congratulations.
No
And
congratulations from me. How dare you choose your parents over me? Unacceptable. Priorities. No, that's amazing. 68 is something very special, isn't it?
that's wow, that's incredible. So congratulations to you and your parents, Brad, and enjoy the breakfast. And yeah, hope
Mm.
you enjoy the replay. Thanks for coming out to say hello. And he says reviewers and readers should be able to say the book series in front of them without people thinking that they hate the author. Yep, that's no, you're exactly right. Thank you for that.
Yep.
That is true. Um, and Yanis, London. Good afternoon from London. Oh, thank you so much. That's so kind of you. Thank you, Yanis. Great to see you. And mentions Yanis says someone read Truth, like the series, the mixed reviews, and like the my God, I'm not ready for such a huge book. And if I and I'm if I have a and again, this isn't the Brian Sanderson needle, sticking the needle. I think for me, I love big chunky books, but I feel like if the book is going to be big and chunky, I need to be invested for that 1,000 pages, right? I've
Hmm.
never had that issue with George R. R. Martin. I've never had that issue with many authors who write big. I write pretty chunky books, not to the length of some very famous authors, but I just felt that I need that constant engagement to commit to a series that's a door stopper, right?
Yeah.
And after Oathbreaker, like I actually, Way of Kings for me, unfortunately, it felt like peak in terms
Oh,
of,
interesting.
and I've only read 3 books in Stormlight, and I've read outside that, I've read Elantris, which I actually think is my favorite book by him. So, but I
Did
did.
you finish? Sorry.
No, go ahead, please go ahead.
I was just going to ask if you finished Prince of Nothing in the end, or did you stop after Warrior Prophet? Speaking about chunky books.
Oh my gosh! So I finished the Prince of Nothing trilogy, and
Okay.
I have the other books sitting there, and they're it's almost like this insidious, you start weekly, you come back to the darkness, you know that you want to indulge.
It's intoxicating, isn't it?
Yeah, and
And
I'm
then you
just
feel bad for being intoxicated by it.
yeah. I've
Yeah.
never read I have never, I said this, I think, to Philip Chase. I have never read a book series that I have been so drawn to that I can't get enough of. And when I finish reading, I feel like I should take a shower because it's so slimy.
You
And
feel like
this,
you're looking at a car crash as you drive past.
yeah,
It's that same feeling of like, should I be looking at this?
yeah.
Um,
I,
R. Scott Baker. I don't know if we mentioned that, but yeah, he was my number two, and I did my top 10 list a few weeks ago.
I think he, and you know what? I don't, I can't say that once I've finished the whole 7 books that I won't feel the same. But yet, do you know what I mean, Dave? It's like
Oh, I
this
know exactly what you mean.
the contradiction of reading a book series that, how can I say this? Like, and like I said, I've seen some pretty horrible things in
Yeah,
my life, especially in terms of my career. But to read a book series that I can't say actually enjoyed it, but it's so good that I love reading it, but I can't say I
yeah.
enjoy the re-experience. It's a real dichotomy, right? Like I'm not sure if I'm even articulating properly how
No,
I
you
feel
are.
about the series. It's hard, but to actually articulate how I feel about the series. I don't know how you feel, but
What do you know? Just before coming live, I was watching Thomas R. Howell's video. You know Thomas R. Howell?
yeah,
Yeah, he put a video out the other day about how you should just buy a book and give it to a friend, which is a wonderful idea. But basically, and it's genuinely a wonderful video. But Thomas was saying, go out to the bookstore, buy a book that you read this year that you loved, and give it to a friend. And I'm like, Thomas, mate, there's no way, there's no way I can buy a copy of R. Scott Baker and offer it to someone. I'd be a bit nervous. It feels like this club, doesn't it, where we all know what we're talking about. And I'm sure Berserk is kind of similar from what I've read of Berserk. You have to be very careful about how you articulate it and how you explain it, not because there's any shame, but because you know what you are exposing people to by recommending it to them.
yeah. And also that I'm like you'd have to sometimes there's moments reading that series you have to convince yourself that there's nothing wrong with me, like psychologically. I'm that reading this book that I'm enjoying it so much. There's not the depravity and the frankly awful parts of this book and this series. You have to tell yourself there's nothing wrong with me from being engaged and intrigued and not being able to look away from, because it's part of human nature,
Yeah.
and the darkness is part of who we are. And our Scott Baker is saying that, like he's saying that, he's essentially saying, don't think that you're so, your morality is so pristine, and that you're not, part of you isn't darkness, right? Because he focuses mostly on the darkness of human nature, and there is sometimes feels like there's very little light, and but at the same time there is. So clearly he's not saying that there's a complete absence of darkness. It seems that what he's saying is that perhaps, and I could be wrong, that we are more darkness than we certainly than we believe, and perhaps we're more darkness than light in the end. But that, I haven't read the whole 7 books, so that remains to be seen.
This
But
is our emotional support Teddy, by the way. That's why I've been holding this up.
yeah, after you read those books, you probably want to, grab Teddy and just hold on. Just
You,
hold on.
you must let me know. I'll put the Teddy down. You must let me know when you finish that quartet what you make of it, because there are some different directions that are taken that are masterfully done, and both, I would say, without spoiling anything, both confirm what you're saying and also maybe go off on a tangent from what you're saying. And so, whether it's in a video or whether it's just by message, you have to let me know how you find those next 4 books.
No, I'd love to chat with you about it,
Yeah.
both, on message and on our video, perhaps, because no series, I'm being honest with you, no series I've ever read, and I'm not that well read, but I have read, somewhat in the genres and subgenres of fantasy, and no series has ever captivated my imagination, shall we say, the way this one has. And it's not that
Mhm.
I haven't read series that I like better than this series. I'm just saying that this series, it's done something to it's almost rewired my brain. But beyond that, if I just look at the craft, the man can write. Like,
Mhm.
wow.
Yeah.
Like the prose, that, like, wow. he's one of those writers like the Jenny Wirtz, like the Stephen Ericksons, like that from a technical aspect, from a craft aspect, wow, you know what I mean? Like I would love to be able to write to that love, to that skill, but and the world building is absolutely phenomenal. So much about the book is it's simply A+. Like really, if you break down all the elements of the book, the prose, the theme, it's A+. But yet again, it's there's a film, there's a layer, it's a
Yeah.
layer of film over those books that and to be honest with you, I want to quickly say this, David. I feel I would have gone back to read. Normally, I have the books. I would have just read straight through because I am so compelled. But
Mm.
I forced myself to take a break because I felt that, you know what? It's probably better for me to just break this up,
Yeah.
read the first trilogy. Then I got into reading a lot of another astounding author, Guy Gavriel Kay. I've been trying to read through all his published works and get that
Mm.
done, which and I'm almost there. But and then once I'm done, go back to Baker and finish out the trip because everybody tells me that and it's and I believe them, but I don't think it's exaggerated. Everybody tells me that if you think that the first trilogy was they went to some dark Baker went some dark corners, just wait until you read the next four books. I'm like, it gets darker, is what you're saying. And everybody's like, yes, it does.
I don't mean to sit here with a smug smile. I'm just very. I want you to read it when you are ready, and I would love to talk with you about it. 'Cause I think there's a I was going to say the misunderstanding of what it means when the next four books are dark, but also they're pretty much darker in a lot of ways. I will say that a couple of scenes in The Prince of Nothing are the darkest thing for me in the whole seven books. But it's funny that you should mention Johnny Wirtz because if there's any series that I've been meaning to get to that I've not opened the first page of, it is Wars of Light and Shadow, which I feel like I'm the only one not sitting on that train. Everyone has, and I know that you are a huge proponent of Johnny's books, and I have Curse of the Mist Wraith upstairs. But if there's any series that I've not cracked open that I've been meaning to give a go, or I'm very desirous to give a go, it's probably Wars of Light and Shadow. It's just that there's so many books and so little time, and that's not one book, that's 11 books, right? So
And
I
you are and forgive me if I'm mischaracterizing. You're a big Balazan fan. So I honestly believe that just the through line with the theme of compassion and the cost of war and conflict and the real brutal underbelly of war and conflict alone is going to hook you. You will be absolutely hooked with the series. But beyond that, the prose is it.
that's what I've heard.
Any words will send you. And I'm not I'm not some big intellectual person. I did major in English literature and medieval history, but Jenny Work sends me running to the dictionary more than any other author, and that's a good thing. So you're an educator. You understand. That means that I actually feel like I'm learning while I'm reading by osmosis. I'm taking these things in, and she's also, I think, making me a better writer because I think that her command of specifically adjectives is second to none that I've read in Western literature, like fantasy, just fantasy. But in terms of fantasy, yeah, just one of the
Well,
best.
you're talking to the man who said abysmalfully about 20 minutes ago, so you're in good company. I think it's going to be for me. There's a few different things. First thing is actually just this morning, I looked up Wars of Light and Shadow. I'm coming towards the end of Robin Hobb. I finished off a couple of big series like our Scott Baker stuff this year, and I'm feeling like it's almost time to start something big and new and chunky. And so I just typed into Google Wars of Light and Shadow explained because I know there's different arcs and things like that. And Google, you know how Google now has an AI built into the search bar. So that came up when I did this search, Wars of Light and Shadow explained, and it gave me the arcs, it gave me praise for Wars of Light and Shadow, and it gave me the criticism of Wars of Light and Shadow, what reviewers don't tend to like. And I can't remember everything, but it said that the criticism of Wars of Light and Shadow is that there's some slight repetition, and also that it's overwhelmingly emotional. And I kind of went, overwhelmingly emotional as a critique. That's interesting, isn't it? That there's so much emotional punch to it that for some people that's enough to maybe put them off. I found that very fascinating because all the books I love are emotionally heavy.
And I have to agree, and I want to come back to that quick. I'm just going to put up some
Please.
comments. again, I'm going to win the truth, even though I like the series, the mixed reviews, and like the, my God, I'm not ready for you. Yeah, it seems to be very divisive.
Massive.
I haven't gotten to it yet. I will eventually. Like I said, I got. I guess my next one up would be Rhythm of War. That's what in the reading order. That's what I have to get to. I don't know when that will be. Sometime next week. I do plan to finish Stormlight, but it's just not the priority for my reading. So
Those flashbacks are dry. I'll be honest with you. I'm a man who doesn't like extended flashback sequences. Generally, it's something I don't really enjoy in my fiction. I think if you have to go back so often that it becomes a substantial part of the book, I find that quite difficult to for authors to pull off. Yeah, it was not pulled off well in that book.
yeah,
Anyway, sorry.
I no, please don't apologize. And I hear that is one of the common complaints in terms of that being jarring. But I guess we'll see when I get there. And quickly, Kay says, yeah. Also, will the time isn't for me after the first paragraph. Didn't make it through the first page. Wow, wow. And yeah. So and we have to pardon ourselves that an iconic series or books isn't for us. That's okay. It's fine.
Yes.
There's lots to read out there, and there's lots of people who will love Wheel of Time. That it's not going to matter in the popularity of the book in at the end of the.
And so many people I respect. Like I don't mean that like, oh, I won't respect you, but like so many people whose opinions I cherish. Nikhil, for example, just to give one example, adores that series. And so there's also people whose opinion I hold extremely high who like the series, and one doesn't take away from the other. You know?
Exactly. It's very well said. Very well said, David. And oh, the brilliant Jared, the fantasy thinker. Thank you so much, sir. Another fabulous booktuber. Check out his channel for some incredible content.
Yes.
I've been so humbled that he's been enjoyed my series as well and has seen fit to put up some reviews of it. By the way, David, if you're not sure if you're aware, Jared is currently reading The Darkness That Comes Before, and he's putting up
Oh, is he?
on his channel, he's putting up videos on each part of the book. It's divided parts,
Oh,
obviously.
really?
And he is I think he's finding the journey again compelling but mind-boggling as it is,
Do you
right?
know, I think there's been a bit of an R. Scott Baker. I don't want to say renaissance because that implies that the fan base went away. But I feel like in the past maybe 12 months, maybe it's Philip and Joanna's discussions have stimulated it a bit. I feel like more and more people are reading Baker this year than I've seen. I don't
Yeah,
know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I
Yeah.
know. I think there is a resurgence. There's a resurgence for Janie Wirtz books.
Yes.
I would have to say there's, it's funny, and people. This again a tangent. Like there's a stereotype of Canadians, us being very, self-effacing and modest, and not ones not to boast about their successes and their triumphs, however. But I like to boast that there's so many great Canadian epic and
Yes.
iconic fantasy authors. People don't realize that they're Canadian. Stephen Erickson,
Erickson, GGK, Baker.
yeah,
Yep.
yep,
Yep.
like in that milieu, Margaret Atwood, you name it, and people often think they're either from the UK or America, but they're not. They're Canadian. So I just want to put that out there. This is some great.
Do you know? Do
And
you know I had my honeymoon in Canada?
you did whereabouts?
All of it, man. So we got my wife's from Massachusetts. We got married in Massachusetts. Did it really cheaply. Got married in a park. It was wonderful. Didn't have to spend much money, which is very much a Scottish thing. And then we flew into Toronto, and then we basically did all of it. The only thing that we had to change up slightly, we were going to be driving a considerable part of it. But I don't know if you've heard of margarita burns before. This is not bookish at all. I got margarita burns on my hand, which is when very, very pale skin comes into contact with citric acid and sunlight. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
And so the day of my wedding, PL, I woke up because I was squeezing. We cooked for the park for the reception, and my job, because I can't cook, was to squeeze limes onto various things. And I was doing it in the hot sun, and I woke up the morning of my wedding with grotesque hands, like grotesque. And how are you going to put a wedding ring on something that's twice the size? Anyway, so I literally for the week after my wedding, I had big gauze bandages around both hands, and I was planning to drive a significant section of Canada, and literally couldn't because I didn't have any digits. So I had to, couldn't do this for thousands of miles. So we ended up driving the Rockies. We did Calgary all the way up to
yes,
Jasper, Edmonton.
beautiful,
Um,
gorgeous.
but we hit most of the cities. I mean, this is now 10 years ago. It was our 10th anniversary last week, but I loved it. It was great. And actually, I'll be in Canada next year. Not to dox myself, but that's looking like where
Oh
we're
my
going to be
gosh.
spending our summer next
Well,
year.
if you're anywhere, in and around the Toronto area, please let me know. So,
Oh, potentially. I'll
so
have to check.
I'm only about an hour north of there, so yeah, yeah. So please,
No promises, but I think we might be
yeah. I
somewhat close.
I would love to. We would love to.
Oh, I'd love that. I'll let you know. Yeah.
Please do. Um, so once again, yes, quickly, off on a tangent, of course, that's who I am. But yep, check out Jared's channel, and Jared is reading something. Now here is a person who knows not only their literature but their history. The incredible Mac Scarfield. Mac, you're never late. You're never late, even if you watch on the replay. So thanks so much for coming out. I'm actually going to have the privilege of sitting down with Mac on Six Elementals in the future.
I
He is
saw
a
that.
wealth
Yeah.
of knowledge. Wow, I'm going to talk about being educated. I'm looking forward to just learning, just sitting there and just taking notes from him. When I get to chat to him. So great to see you, Mac. Thanks so much for coming out. And Jared's encouragement is, I believe he's talking about Second Apocalypse and all things Baker. He says, yeah, just start it. Yep, yep.
He's talking about Wind and Truth.
Oh, he started much Winded Truth.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm messing with you.
Yes. Okay, he says yes. You know what? Pseudo. This is a pseudo. But
Starting book 4 this month, by the way.
oh, I'm honored. I think that without and I could be totally wrong, based on my limited knowledge of what your tastes are, I think the next two books in particular, actually the next three, but the next two will be I think to your tastes. I think perhaps. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Jake has been the vanguard. He's the one who's tearing ahead in the group chat generally, and he's been sending positive vibes back our way. So he's awesome, isn't he, Jake?
Jake is amazing. He's
Yeah.
just Jake is incredible. Your whole group, Zachary Shea, like what a group. You, Zachary Shea, Jake, Philip, Nikhil, like that is. I mean, that's an author's dream to have. And I've said this before, to have you all talking about their book. Like I'm just giddy with. I'm extremely humbled. Like it's very humbling. So thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
For doing that. And yes, this need to drop to get okay. Thanks so much for coming by. Hope you enjoy the way pay. Oh, and just to clarify, Jared clarified. He said he meant Wars of Light and Shadow. David says you need to start Janny's series. And again, and I'll do that quick plug for Janny because again, she is my favorite author. If you feel that you're well read in the genre, to read the big, the Rumley the Malazans, the read Wars of Light and Shadow. It is a tremendous achievement that you won't regret. A real investment of time, I think, is well worth it. So, and I know again, 11 books, intimidating, but yeah.
You said you were going to circle back on something regarding Wars of Light and Shadow. Did you get to it?
Oh no, I didn't. So quickly regarding Wars of Light and Shadow, I think the thing about I talked a bit about resurgence. You were talking about you specifically mentioned Baker and what you perceive a resurgence with him, and I perceive the same resurgence with Janny, and it's because of brilliant booktubers like the Jakes and the Philip Chases who have brought her work, back into prominence. I think it deserves. The thing is that Janny is one of those authors that she came out in that same era of the 70s, 80s, 90s, big epic, the Wheels of Times, the A Song of Ice and Fires, the Ramla show. She wrote, those are all her contemporaries, the George R. Martins, the Robin Hobbs, etc. But for whatever reasons, her series didn't get the notoriety and the push, perhaps, that some of those. But now people are realizing and questioning, well, why not? But my point is, if you get a chance to watch, just punch into YouTube Janny Wirch and watch anything that she's done in the last, especially interviews in the last few years, you will realize that's a travesty.
Crazy smart is what I've seen.
She's brilliant. Just that was my point. Basically, just before you dive in, perhaps again, if someone's intimidated by, I was just saying you, David, anyone, but just watch Janny. And I think you will be motivated to pick up her series.
What I've seen, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen nearly as much as my fellow booktubers who have made that leap and read that series, but I've watched a couple of things with her taking part. And for example, Jake will be sitting there and he'll ask Janny a question, and Janny will just deliver a lecture, and I mean this positively, just off the cuff. Like, she'll just talk for 20 minutes in a way that if I had all the notes and preparation in the world, I could not begin to muster 10% of the intellectual force of what she delivers. Um, and so, having not read a page of her stuff, and Johnny, if you watch this, forgive me, the time is coming. I find myself very, very impressed with the knowledge that is so clearly there and so easily drawn out through a simple question.
Yes, and that knowledge is built over a lifetime of, Wars of Light and Shadow is a 40-year endeavor, right?
Yeah,
Jane's been writing for the better part of 5 decades. So, and at a certain level, at a very, very high level. And I think, and again, I'm going to move on to the next topic, but I, I think that one of the biggest values that Jenny so well rounded. I mean, she's an expert in all things equestrian, nautical. She's a world class bagpipe player. She does search and rescue.
bagpipes.
She does search and rescue. Watch her on her channel. There's a video of her playing bagpipe. She's a world class bagpipe player. Like she's a world class painter. So is her husband, right? Like her paintings have been in on exhibition in art museum stuff. Like it's the her talents, like the spectrum of her talents is like it was Stephen R. Dawson. I think he endorsed one of her books. The quote was, it's unfair. It's something to the effect of paraphrase. It's unfair that someone should have this much talent, basically, in so many things. Like she's a prodigy in so many ways. But
I can cook a mean cheese on toast.
that's
That's what I have.
more than me. Max says A Hunt for Jackals by Joe. Yes, J.L. Odom. Very much on my TBR. Very intrigued
So
about.
if I can jump in, I just filmed a video yesterday that's gonna be my video this week, and I've titled it what do I call it? The best indie book I've ever read. I don't know. I was floored by how good A Haunt for Jackals is, and I've read present company, including a whole host of really, really, really bloody excellent indie books. But you know what it's like, PL, when you have a book on your shelf and you're like, yes, I'll get to that. Not this week, but I'm planning. It's soon, but it's never priority. That was this has happened for me with a few different books. Hyperion was like this for years. I had Hyperion on my shelf for about 7 years before I took it down and realized how incredible it was. But I read By Blood, by Salt, and I liked it a lot. And I thought, right, book two will be read. I have book two at some point. It's there. It's there. And I just, on a whim, decided to use my summer holiday to read a few of these books that were kind of languishing in this perpetual TBR. And I took A Hunt for Jackals with me. Um, I was up till 2:33 in the morning reading it. It was so good. And now I'm doubting my opinion of book one. I'm like, was book one that good? And I didn't realize. Do you know what that's like?
Yeah.
And so my next video coming out this week will be just not necessarily a review because it's not that granular, but just an endorsement of how good A Haunt for Jackals is. Yeah,
Sometimes a gush fest just feels good when you
yeah,
love books so much and you just want to gush. It
yeah.
feels good. I've heard nothing but positives about this author and this series that it is just. And again, it seemed to have taken the self-published fantasy blog off by storm. And this was
Yes,
a book that, and this is again, this is what I love about the indie sphere. Apparently, this is a book that had, you know, if 30 reviews on Goodreads prior to the self-published fantasy blog contest, and how well that it did, and now it's got hundreds,
yes,
and so it only helps when people like you who have an audience, they have a platform and are well respected, come out and push a book, an indie book especially, because I think that's the other big, and I'd like to hear what you think about this. One of the biggest benefits of booktube in general and is that these under the radar books can be pushed into the consciousness of people who would never otherwise have even dreamed of looking at them, right?
yeah.
And is that one of the things that you found about booktube specifically and being part of it?
You know, well, there's a few things that are going on in my mind right now. I guess the first thing I'd want to say is I think also what this conversation exposes is how important it is to often get to book two. Because I think, especially with indie works as well, I mean, there's so many authors. I mean, let's take our mutual friend Vaughan Roycroft with this Underdation trilogy. Severing Sun, again, it's a really good book. I prefer books two and three. And how many people read book one and then go, okay, just like I did with By Blood, by Salt, and go, yeah, later. Not necessarily never, just later. And I think it shows that, okay, yes, I want to recognize our time is valuable. And reading is both a hobby, but I mean, let's take a 500-page book. I mean, the average person, what's that? Somewhere between 20 and 30 hours of time. We have to be careful with our time, but I do think it is important to consider continuing series if and maybe not being so easy to lightly DNF something with book one and then leaving it there. And for me, By Blood, by Salt and A Hunt for Jackals was a lesson there too. But also, what you were saying, if I can just gish gallop a little bit, um, the other thing I think that the last year has taught me is very much, although I view myself as very much a small booktuber still, and I know that it's all relative, right? Someone with another zero attached to my subscriber count could also view themselves as small, and then someone who's just starting out would look at me as a titan, and it's all relative. But over this last year, I have very much become conscious that, James, people have gone out and bought books based on what I've said to my camera. And present example here with Mac and his lovely comment. And I think there's some responsibility there too, that when I'm talking about something, I want to be accurate to my feelings. And maybe that means that if there's a book that I don't like, I just don't talk about it, because the fact that people put their wallets where my words are is it? I don't know. Maybe burden's too strong, but maybe it's not. And I think maybe that goes to what some of you're saying as well. That you do want to be careful with your words when it's not just rambles to a camera anymore. I don't know. What do you think about that?
No, I absolutely believe that. I actually said the other day that, and this doesn't mean I'm trying to be disingenuous or I'm trying to avoid, confrontation or avoid, you know, I'm not trying to engage in false positivity, but I honestly have uh, I honestly have a mantra and a mandate that if I can't endorse a book and say to at least like the 3+ star level, that I simply don't put I may talk about it with the author, I may talk with other people in private, but I simply don't put out reviews and they, because you know I just feel I have never regretted not saying something negative about a book. I've never I'm never going to regret that, right? But
Mm.
I could potentially regret it. And I'm not saying I will, but I could. And when I weigh that against the because there's so many people that will candidly and much more effectively than I, much more with much more tact and being adroit in how they say it, will be able to articulate like you will articulate something negative about a book and still not perhaps and maybe even perhaps turn people onto that book that say, well, David says that he didn't like this thing, but oh, I like those things, so I'll check out that book. I don't believe I'm that good at that, so I would rather err on the side of not saying it, and I've never regretted it, right? And but that's just me. Now, I honestly believe that there should be critiques. There should be negative feedback about. I mean, that's how we authors grow, right? That's
Yeah.
how everyone grows by making mistakes and people saying, hey, do you think about this? And but at the same time, I think publicly, I'm much more confident. I don't have the platform that you do. My channel is a fraction of yours. But at the same time, yes, some people actually listen to what I say when I write a review or I put something on
Yes.
BookTube, and they're like, okay, well, I just prefer it to be positive mostly. And the fact that I can focus on the positive, I know that also makes me really feel really good, like
Yes.
inside. That makes me feel good. So that's why I think I tend to stick to that.
And it's why I find myself less and less inclined towards star ratings. I mean, I've never done them on my channel, but even as someone who just watches other people, I think they're weirdly definitive, and I'm not saying anything original here, but it's so far more important to look at the positives and critiques of what someone is saying, um, to triangulate whether a book is for you. And I think so often, I mean, I used to do it when you got a paper back in school. Let's say you're writing an essay. No one is sitting there going through this comment, this comment, this comment, and then finally turning the page and seeing the score. No, what you do is you turn the page, you see the score, and then you work your way back. And I think we do the same thing with when we're consuming reviews, and so yeah, I hear what you're saying about even just seeing a review and then going on to hear the words are tempered or are colored by the star rating that's already in your head. Another thing I've become quite aware of over the past couple of months, and I've been trying to think this through in relation to my channel and when I talk about books, is the difference between descriptor and critique. That those aren't the same thing, and but we can phrase a descriptor like it's a critique. and that is unfair to the author. And I mean, so I just finished Finders Keepers by Stephen King, which is part of his Bill Hodges trilogy, which is largely very good. But it's a weirdly structured book. The main character doesn't come in until about 60% through the story. The detective doesn't come in until significantly late into the story. And I was sitting here thinking about my opinion of this book, and I'm like, well, it's strange that we don't actually get Bill Hodges until past the halfway point. And I was trying to think about why I didn't like that. And then I realized, hang on, it's not that I don't dislike that. It's just uncommon. It's just not how you normally do stories. But that is not necessarily, and I'll have to think about it some more, a detriment to that story. It's just King has chosen to do it this way. It's a descriptor, not a critique. And I'm sure maybe you'll get this yourself with your own series, because book one, especially of Drowned Kingdom, is, it follows its own path that is unconventional. And I'm sure that when you get reviews that, whether they're generally favorable or not, a lot of people will say things like, they spend a lot of time on that beach. And that is also not necessarily a critique. It could be turned into a critique, but that statement in and of itself is a descriptor. So I found myself quite fascinated by this conversation as well recently. You're smiling.
It's just hilarious because book six, even when you get to it, that same aspect of the writing where you don't see a main character till very late in the book,
Yes.
is something you're going to find in my book. So, it's just so funny because if I'm going, any critiques I've had of that book, for some people it's not an issue at all, and they loved the focus on other characters. Some people it is an issue. So it's just, and again, it's subjective, right? But it's just so funny that you picked that particular aspect. It's like, yeah, well, wait till you get to book six of my
Yeah.
series.
But it depends on the way that it's carried out, right? Like I could take that Stephen King example and go, okay, and for these reasons it didn't work. And I do have other issues with that trilogy. It's still enjoyable because Stephen King struggles to write an unenjoyable book.
Yes.
Um, but I cannot, and I'm trying to be more aware of this when I talk about books on my channel, that I cannot say I didn't like this because of a descriptor, or I can, but I then need to go further and say why that descriptor didn't work for me. And everyone probably knows this already, but it's taken me a while to work it out.
No. And
Yeah.
that's an excellent point. I want to quick put up. So Mac also says, he's talking about Jenny, and Jenny corrected Patrick O'Brien, author of the 20 Napoleonic nautical military history fiction, Aubrey, and a Maturin series in the writing of his sailing. Because yeah, Jenny does know that much about sailing. Also a big starry-eyed for Sunday Nation, and Max said he's very excited about the sequel series.
Mhm.
Going back quickly to KE, she mentioned, yep, a nice year, Hunt for Jackals, yep, and I really need to get into that series.
So good.
I
It's
have
so
to, I have to get there. And she also mentions that the author is a stellar human as well, which is always easy
That
to get
helps.
behind
Yeah.
when you know the author is a great person. Um,
She's another person who can just talk for several minutes without any ums and ahs. I don't know if you follow her on Instagram.
very articulate, very,
Yeah.
very insightful, intelligent, extremely, yeah, very.
See all these little cuts I do in my YouTube video is just to get rid of the ums.
Uh, and Max says, "Yeah, very excited for Von series." And yeah, and Jared says, "Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed." I feel, and I know we're winding down here, David. I don't want to take too much time. I know you got to get to bed. Um, I feel that and I haven't appropriately been able to perhaps quantify this and give you the compliment that you deserve. Is that I think your channel strikes the perfect balance with insights and deep analysis, uh, entertaining, funny, very witty. You're extremely witty. And but your enthusiasm, the spontaneity, the just the willingness to, like, yeah, come on in your lounge pants and just with your kids dollhouse, and yeah, it's just, I love it. I absolutely love it, and I think that please don't change. Like, please continue to be you. Smart, funny, kind. Like, please keep doing what you're doing, because a lot of us, can't wait for your next video. Can't wait to see what you're going to do next. But also what I would say finally is that, yeah, like, but also that I appreciate in life, and I always have. I like to be in the presence and watch people that I learn from, and I learn a lot from you. I learn a lot from watching your videos. So Thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm glad that you don't mind the probably the worst background you've ever had on your. No, you know what? It's a descriptor. The dollhouse is a descriptor, not a critique. Um, yeah, no, thank you. It really does mean a lot, and I always struggle to articulate this because I never want it to come across as false or trite. But starting my channel really has changed my life. Is probably too strong. My children changed my life. BookTube exists, but it's been so lovely to be able to join this community, find that I can put stuff out that is an accurate reflection again of who I am and what I'm about, and that there are people who, beyond myself, tend to find some joy in it. I really don't take that lightly, and it's become a bigger part of my life than I thought it was going to be when I started. And I'm just so pleased to be around. It's nice. It's nice to have almost like a portfolio of your reading as well. And I think maybe when you talk about how I you know you put it far more nicely than I will, but some of my inane jabbering and inclusion of the frivolity behind the scenes, it's it's because I have joy when I do it, and I like to keep the little joyful moments in as well as the actual the book discussion. So, but yeah, thank you so much for the comments and the compliments. I do appreciate it.
Well, I mean it from the bottom of my heart, and that joy shines through. And in a world where, while we appreciate it, in a world where that could be like the world of Baker, where the joy doesn't shine through that much. It's little poke holes poked in the dark canvas. We need more of that. I quickly do want to end off though before I get into the final end of the conversation.
No problem.
What Katie's putting up, she says, curious about your thoughts on people saying they don't trust ratings on indie books for exactly the same stance PL has. Not reviewing books that are below 3 stars out of kindness. As an indie author, I have mixed feelings about it. Uh, I, I,
Yes.
I'm grateful, but also worried about a growing trust review system. That's an excellent point, Key. And I do want to quickly give my opinion and let then David go. So, um, when it comes to what still exists as a bias, preconceived notions. I'm not sure what you like to say about indie books and specifically, right? In indie fantasy. I can only speak for indie fantasy per se, because although I have friends that write in other indie genres and subgenres, fantasy is what I'm most familiar with, the fantasy part of the indie sphere. What I think has happened is that by virtue of the actual quality of the books, indie and actually the quantity as well, because the market is flooded now with thousands and thousands of indie books per day, just in the fantasy milieu. um I think that people have come to appreciate that indie books can be done just as well as any traditionally published books, just as well written, with his fantastic, editing, and a high quality of cover design, and a high
Hmm.
quality of quality overall, including an absence of spelling and grammatical errors and things like that. Like, there are some really quality production out there, and really hot, like not just hot quality, but frankly expensive and expensively produced.
Can
That
I just chime in and give you an example, which is Adrian M. Gibson's new novella? Just a stunning piece of work on a physical level.
Yes,
Sorry.
and
Yeah.
agents is professional in every
Yeah.
regard, so not surprising. But yes, so I think that stigma is slowly dissipating, but not to the degree that perhaps it should have by this juncture in the evolution of independent and self-published and small press fantasy. However, what I will say is this: that if you look at the biggest indie fantasy books, i.e., the Will Whites, the Cradle series, the Ryan Cahill, the Bound and the Broken series. You pick your big name indie. There's many more, and especially in the romantasy indies, there's tons and tons of really popular series. JD Evans comes to mind. She was an SPFBO finalist. Like, these are books with thousands and thousands of ratings. Emma Wong, who started off indie essentially and now is traditionally published. Sort of Kaigen is not just one of the most popular indie fantasy books I think out there. It's probably one of the most popular fantasy books
Yes, I would
standalones
agree.
in the last So you're talking about books with massive followings, but at the same time, that stigma I was talking about, I think, unfortunately, part of the reason why it has somewhat of is because people initially were were less willing to focus on the negatives of these books and more endorsing positive to make them stand up and be looked at in the same light as traditionally published books because they're fighting an uphill battle,
Yes.
right? So, but now that that's happening, I think it's become more and more and more acceptable to really make that delineation between, okay, these are indie books that perhaps could use work, but these books are superlative and should be seen alongside the best of traditional publishing. And I think that grace period, perhaps, while I guess if from a purist standpoint, perhaps unfair in terms of the lack of actual critique and negative, has perhaps helped the indie um the indie essentially the rise of indie books, and so that now I think people are much more comfortable seeing them stand beside their counterparts in traditional publishing. And I think that I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, again, with anything else in life, I will say, what have we lost with that, right? In other words, is the downside that we've endorsed books that perhaps weren't actually as good as they people kind of implied by the lack of negative reviews? Perhaps we may have. That's a legitimate concern. But at the same time, I think there has been a benefit. So I'm not sure how you feel, David, but I'd be
Yeah.
fascinated to hear.
So I'll say at the outset, I don't mind going for a little bit longer because I don't want to do this conversation an injustice and move past it very quickly. I think it's tricky, right? Because I do think there is some truth to if there's an indie book, you don't want to trash it, right? You don't want to be like, this thing is hot garbage because someone spent a lot of time on that. They might have 3 reviews on Goodreads, and you will legitimately potentially destroy the trajectory of their writing career. And so there is some sensitivity there, and that has to be balanced against the fact, as I said earlier, that people are based on, and not to float myself high or anything, but people might go out and buy a book based on how I talk about it. So those two things have to be held in tension. One point I would say, and let me be clear here, I am not saying that the bad stuff goes to the bottom. There are so many good books that might not have a wide readership that are still very quality, but I will say at the same time, the stuff that you're generally seeing over and over again, generally speaking, you can probably be rest assured that when you read one of these books, when you pick them up, they are not going to be drivel. I would say just like traditional fantasy, right? I mean, we talk about the classics, right? We talk about Joe Abercrombie, Robin Hobb, all these writers that are the same conversation over and over. Stephen Erickson. Now, if you walk into Waterstones at Barnes and Noble or what have you, you will see 250 authors on the fantasy shelves.
Yeah.
So why is it that we're talking about the same 4, 5, 6 authors, and is that a problem? I would say that yes, we should always be talking about more authors. We should be seeking out more authors. We should be celebrating more authors. But nevertheless, I would say that Joe Abercrombie, Robin Hobb, Stephen Erickson are there because they are excellent and they have earned that place. And again, just to be completely clear, that is not to say that there are not other authors who could also be in that position of excellence. It's just to say that those at the top generally are there because they're really good. And I would say the same thing about indie and self-publishing, at least from my perspective. Not being quite as involved in it, obviously, as someone like PL who has books in that space. But I'd say that the books that are talked about over and over and over, the books that you will see on multiple channels, that is not just networking. That is not just people with their presence. Part of the reason they have risen to that top might be because they're really good at networking and promotion, but it's not just that. In the vast majority of cases, books that are renowned in the indie space are there because people have read them and enjoyed them. And I'd give a number of examples. I think Adrian M. Gibson is a really good example. I think his stuff is really, really bloody good. And so people talk about him, and therefore, he is in that conversation. The challenge is, I think, to celebrate those really good authors who have in the indie space, made it to some extent, while also trying to seek out the next good read. And also recognize when those books are good and lifting them up, while not in any way bringing anyone else down or making them feel like they don't want to continue writing. And that is a balance, isn't it? Because just like with traditional publishing, not everything you pick up is going to be good, but you also have to be aware that maybe something like a Brandon Sanderson, to circle back on that conversation, if you give Brandon Sanderson a 1 star, Brandon Sanderson will cackle as he continues to write his massive series. And that might not be the case for everyone. So there's a lot of things to juggle here, and there's sensitivity to people who are out buying books, and there is sensitivity to writers as well. It's I don't think there's any clear definitive answers here. I think it's just navigating case by case and being as honorable to everyone as you possibly can be.
That was very, very well said, David. Thank you for that. Yeah. So, and Keith, thank you. Yeah, and thanks to David. Makes sense. And maybe when I get enough ratings, I'll start seeing lower ones and be super grateful. It isn't taking my debut early on, and I have to say that is a legitimate concern for indie
Yeah.
authors that perhaps some traditionally, I know the industry is changing, that some traditionally published authors don't seemingly don't have to worry about. They're going to have their publishers, especially the big five, reach out to various blog sites and reviewers, and they're going to get a certain amount of views off the cuff,
Yes.
pre-release, and that most independent authors would dream of having, in the whole lifetime of their books. So, but anyways, I don't want to regress
And,
too much.
and there is difference in connotations here, right? Which we have to juggle with. I mean, the fact that if a publisher reached out to me and said, we have an e-arc, would you be interested in an arc? That almost seems like something of honor. Whereas I think sometimes indie authors feel like if they reach out saying, hey, would you read an arc for my book? That's seen as irksome, burdensome, an imposition. And so I am also aware that indie authors are juggling a different set of connotations regarding their work, which is something, again, to be finessed and navigated. I don't know if you'd agree with that, PL.
I would, and
Yeah.
I quickly do want to put up Kay's point that and self-publishing is expensive, especially to make
Mm,
a quality book. To get 5 rounds of editing, a developmental editor, a copy editor, a line to produce a quality book, to pay for a cover, to do all those things is can be, depending on your skill set, the people you have in your stable, can be really expensive, and you're doing this out of your own pocket, right? It's definitely done for the love of, right? Whereas, and I totally understand and respect the fact that traditional publishing is about profit. It has become almost exclusively about profit now. And it's not that people are working there are good people that don't want to deliver good books, but the industry itself, I'm saying, has become only about profit. And the creativity side is, well, as long as you sell. So,
yeah.
and again, I don't want to, that's a whole other conversation, but I quickly want to recognize an absolutely fabulous booktuber in person, the wonderful Joanna. You're never late, Joanna. Thanks so much for stopping by. So humbled. Check out Joanna's channel. You talk about intellect and insights and thoughtful analysis. You won't go wrong by subscribing to Joanna's channel. She is simply fabulous, and she's just a wonderful
Agreed.
person. So it's
Agreed.
always great to see you, Joanna. Um, Quickly, I gotta give a shout out to the awesome Zachary Shea. Thanks so much, my friend. Hope you're doing well. We're going by. Great to see you, of course. Zachary is again another brilliant, brilliant booktuber. Such great contemplation of books. He has a love for the classics that I really, really appreciate. And again, I'm humbled that he's leading your merry band of drowned kings in analyzing my series. So
Shay's so funny because you never know when you're clicking on his video if you're going to see a review of Paradise Lost or the most recent graphic novel that was released 2 weeks ago, which is
yeah,
which is entirely a positive, by the way. Okay, yeah, but
it
the
is.
eclectic reading style is appreciated.
It is absolutely a
Yeah.
positive. So definitely check out Chase Show. But listen, David, you have been so generous with your time. You've been so generous with your space, and it's been so great to
Space.
share Teddy with you and share the dollhouse. And just thank you for being you and everything you do. I will continue to love and look forward to watching all your videos and interacting with you. It's been fabulous getting to know you. You're a wonderful person. Thank you
You as
for what
well.
you do for young minds. It's another whole discussion, but I'm someone as an old goat that feels that sadly I see literacy and reading declining, and thank you for what you do to encourage that. I'm sure that you do that in your line of work, and also what you do in booktube. So there's nothing wrong with reading. Reading even a
Not at
book
all.
that you don't like. There's no such thing as reading as bad when it comes to actually reading a book. You may not like the book, but the reading, the actual endeavor, is nothing but positive. So thank you for being part of that.
You
And
know, just not to keep us going too long, but my son has recently started reading Dogman, the wee Captain Underpants spin-off, and it's been such a delight just talking about young minds beginning to latch onto reading. I went into his room today. He was just sitting there on his bed reading Dogman. I'm like, yeah, I've bloody got him. I've got him. But no, it's been great. It's been great coming on. Next one we'll do from inside the playhouse, just to keep the streak going.
I would absolutely love that. Okay, you heard it here first. Next time, we'll be coming live to you from the Playhouse.
Thanks, Pete. I appreciate it.
Listen, before you go quickly, David, please, where can we follow you on social media? What name of your channel? Anything you'd like to say to promote? Some shameless self promo here about.
I don't really have self promo. Again, it comes back to the feelings of inadequacy. So yeah, my channel is called Four Corners of the Page. And I'm sure that you'll be able to find it from this video. But I'm tremendously happy to be here, and really very much looking forward to book 4 in the Drowned Kingdom saga, as I'm sure she is. And yeah, it's always a pleasure, sincerely, whether it's on Messenger or this. It's just great to chat, PL.
I feel the same. Thank you, sir. And quickly, PL Stewart, obviously you're watching this channel, Drowned Kingdom Saga, 6 multi interviews where I get to interview fabulous people like David. Thank you so much to everyone in the chat that came by and commented and engaged and asked questions. Thank you. You're all so lovely, so wonderful. You're what makes the type of long form content amazing. Long live long form content. That's what I love about BookTube, one things that I really enjoy. So thank you for making it special. And again, check out the channels of all those, especially those booktubers that were in the chat, like Joanna and the Fantasy Sneaker and Brad Miller and Shay and all those wonderful people, because they put, like David, they put up some fabulous content. Quickly, at PL Stewart Writes is all the social media stuff: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, all that stuff. The website's plstewart.com. And yes, I think you might need a hug from the Teddy as you get near the end of this year, because I'm almost finished the Drowned Kingdom saga. One book left to come out that's entitled Sure Steel in early 2027. The current publication is The Black Dragon.
Is it finished?
It's getting there.
Okay.
So it will be out in early 2027. So if you want to indulge in the series, perhaps it's the time if you want to binge. But yeah, I'm the author of the Drowned Kingdom saga, started with the Drowned Kingdom, which is the first book. I'm also an assistant editor with the awesome Forgo blog and Grimdark magazine. So shout out to all of those people involved in those publications, because they are all wonderful. And you can read my reviews and things that I'm doing there. So once again, this has been the phenomenal David from Four Corners of the Page, one of my favorite booktubers. I've been so grateful and honored that he's joined me tonight, and for him. And hopefully he'll do me the privilege of coming back into the channel at some point in the future. So
you need to give me lists on how to plug your channel. That was excellent. that was not your first time, was it? That was great. I even interrupted you halfway through and you kept going. It was great.
Oh, David is awesome, man. Oh, it's awesome. This has been such a blast. I've really genuinely enjoyed it. So everyone in the chat and everyone who watches the replay, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye now.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Sure.